Apple uses specific psychological techniques to manipulate your behavior every time you walk into their stores. From the 76-degree laptop angle that tricks you into touching products, to employee training manuals that read like psychology textbooks, Apple has turned retail into a science of human manipulation. On May 15, 2001, Steve Jobs stood before the press and announced something the tech world did not expect. Apple would launch 25 retail stores across the United States by the end of the year. The plan was not just ambitious. It was radical for a company that until then had relied on third-party retailers to sell its products. Jobs called it a new retail experience, promising spaces where customers could interact with Apple's entire lineup, guided by staff trained to deliver more than a sales pitch. 4 days later, Apple opened its first 2 locations, one in Glendale, California, the other in Tysons Corner, Virginia. The opening weekend drew 7,700 visitors. Lines curled around the block, and news outlets captured images of crowds pressing in to get their first look. This immediate surge was not a fluke. It was proof that people were hungry for something different in electronics retail, something more personal and tactile than the big box aisles of the early 2000s. The man Jobs tapped to lead this experiment was Ron Johnson, hired in January 2000 after a successful run at Target. Johnson's mandate was clear. Do not just sell products, reinvent the entire experience of buying technology. He reported directly to Jobs and was given broad authority to rethink everything from store layout to staff roles. Johnson's early sketches and internal presentations would soon introduce concepts like the Genius Bar and the open table layout, ideas that would become icons of Apple retail. But before any of that, the first stores had to prove that Apple could draw a crowd on its own terms. The response in those first days set a new standard, validating the company's gamble and giving Johnson the green light to push the boundaries of what a store could be. Inside a cavernous warehouse near Cupertino, Apple built a full-scale replica of its ideal store, long before a single customer set foot inside. The company didn't just sketch blueprints, it staged entire days, moving employees and testers through mock shopping trips, changing layouts, lighting, and product placements by the hour. Permit filings from Santa Clara County confirm the lease and build-out, while former staff recall the space as part laboratory, part theater. Ron Johnson, the retail chief, pushed for a service desk inspired not by electronic stores, but by luxury hotel concierges. The Genius Bar was born from this thinking. It was a place where you don't get a sales pitch, you get help, advice, and a sense that you belong. In this prototype warehouse, every detail was tested for its effect on behavior. Tables were spaced so that you'd feel comfortable lingering. Devices were left open and powered on, inviting you to touch, swipe, and imagine ownership. Early internal presentations show Johnson's commitment to these zones: showcase, hands-on, and service. The Genius Bar, in particular, was designed to anticipate needs before you voiced them, a psychological move borrowed straight from hospitality. The payoff wasn't just in buzz, but in cold, hard numbers. Analyst reports from the first year estimated sales topping $6,000 per square foot, levels that luxury brands like Tiffany & Company and Lululemon could only dream of. Apple's rent-to-sales ratio hovered around 2%, far below the industry norm. This was not just a retail win. It was evidence that calculated design could turn space into profit. Every feature, from the open tables to the concierge desk, was stress-tested for its power to shape your decisions and your loyalty. Apple's prototype proved that the right environment could make shoppers act in ways they'd never expect. Every morning before the doors open, Apple Store employees walk the floor with a mission. Every MacBook must be tilted at exactly 76 degrees, not 75, not 77. The company even created a proprietary iPhone app called Simply Angle to enforce this rule. vibrating when the screen hits the perfect mark. The angle is not about aesthetics, it is behavioral engineering. At 76 degrees, the screen is just awkward enough that you, the customer, have to reach out and adjust it. That tiny gesture, fingers on the aluminum, palm on the trackpad, activates what psychologists call the endowment effect. The moment you touch the device, your brain starts to treat it as yours. In lab studies, even a brief touch can raise someone's willingness to pay by as much as 8%. Apple's own A versus B tests found that laptops set at this angle received over 60% more touches and drove higher conversion rates. But the manipulation does not stop at the tables. In 2012, a leaked Apple Store training manual surfaced online, exposing a playbook of psychological tactics. Employees memorize the Apple acronym: approach, probe, present, listen, end. Every customer interaction is scripted to feel personal, but it is guided by a checklist. When you hesitate at the price, staff pivot to the 3 F's: feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. Others have felt the same way, but they found the value made sense once they used it. The manual bans words like expensive, cheap, or problem. Instead, staff are trained to reframe everything in positive, premium language. One former Apple trainer described it as retail theater, where every line and gesture is rehearsed to keep you engaged, curious, and nudged toward buying. These tactics are not random. They are the product of behavioral science and relentless testing. Apple's hands-on displays, scripted language, and even the forbidden words list are all designed to guide you from curiosity to ownership, without you ever noticing the strings being pulled. Step onto Fifth Avenue in New York, and you are confronted by a glass cube, 32 feet high, 75 feet wide, floating above the sidewalk like a monument to transparency. This is not just architecture, it is behavioral engineering. The cube's transparent walls are designed to trigger what psychologists call the transparency bias. When you can see straight through a storefront, your brain equates openness with honesty and quality. Peter Bolin, the architect behind the cube, described it as an invitation, not a barrier. The numbers back up the power of this design. Over 100,000 people stream through the Fifth Avenue store every week, making it one of the most visited retail locations on the planet. Inside, the experience is choreographed to the minute. A cantilevered, glass staircase draws you downward, turning entry into a ceremony. Overhead, a ceiling shaped like a drifting cloud softens noise and light, while the floor opens up into zones, product tables, Genius Bar, and in newer stores, clusters of living trees called Genius Groves. These green spaces are not just for show. Biophilic design, the use of natural elements indoors, is proven to lower stress and make people linger longer. In Apple's case, that translates directly to more time spent with products and a higher chance of buying. Angela Ahrendts, brought in from Burberry in 2014, pushed the concept further. She recast Apple stores as town squares, public spaces where you could attend free workshops, learn to code, or just people watch. The Today at Apple program, rolled out globally, was not about selling devices outright. It was about making the store feel like a community hub. Internal metrics showed that in stores running these programs, visitors stayed up to 30% longer on average. Accessory sales climbed too. The longer you stay, the more likely you are to buy, especially when you are surrounded by crowds. Lines outside new launches are not just a side effect, they are a form of social proof. If other people are willing to wait, the logic goes, maybe you should be too. Every architectural flourish, every scheduled event, every carefully managed queue is part of a system designed to pull you in, keep you there, and make you feel like you belong. In 2023, a new kind of energy crackled through Apple's retail ranks. Employees in Towson, Maryland, and Tulsa, Oklahoma began organizing, driven by demands for fair pay, reliable schedules, and a voice in how their stores were run. The retail, wholesale, and department store unions stepped in, helping staff coordinate meetings and distribute flyers, often just outside the glass doors. National headlines followed as Apple responded with legal muscle, hiring Littler Mendelsohn, a firm well known for defending corporations against union drives. Inside break rooms, workers debated risks and rewards, and outside, the story shifted from sleek design to the fight for basic workplace rights. In August 2024, Apple and the union at Towson reached a contract that sent shockwaves through the tech retail world. The agreement delivered a 10% wage increase for all unionized employees, retroactive to the start of negotiations. For the first time in Apple retail history, shift scheduling would be based on seniority, giving long-serving staff first pick of hours and days off, a direct answer to years of unpredictable, last-minute shift changes. The contract also expanded health benefits and locked in 5 days of paid sick leave, plus a formal arbitration process for grievances. Union negotiators called it a breakthrough, proof that even the most tightly controlled retail environment could be changed from within. For Apple, the deal was a rare concession that rippled outward as other stores watched what was now possible. Apple's stores aren't just places to shop. They are laboratories, engineered to exploit the quirks of your mind. The 76-degree laptop angle, the subtle scripts, the glass cathedral ceilings, none are accidents. As these designs shape our choices, the real question is, how much of your decision was ever yours?